Hello everybody and welcome to my first sawmill. I have set up here a new steel saw. I've got a 36-inch bar and I've got a Vever chainsaw mill set up on a scaffold platform between two ladders. I've done this. I'm primarily cutting bulb lengths, not so much dimensional lumber. I've set up the platform that way so that I can get a nice clean level cut. Unfortunately, there is a little bit of height difference between the steps on the two step ladders, so I have to measure down from the bottom of the platform. I've also adjusted for the pith. I want to try and get that my cut centered around the level of the pith. That side's actually looks like it may have two, but I've used the higher one for the setting on it. I'll do a clean cut on this side. It'll take off very little on this end, a little bit more on the other. This exterior is all rotted out sapwood on a white oak, but the heartwood, I've got another piece cut out, looks to be fairly usable and of a decent size. Once I get that clean cut done, I'm going to flip the piece over, do a skim cut on the other side, and what that will allow me to do is to get rid of the platform and just use the Vever jig directly on the wood itself to try and cut out a portion of the pith. I'm thinking of cutting out directly onto the pith itself, which should still leave me a significant amount of wood. It's already sealed up on both ends, so hopefully that'll help prevent some of the checking. But get set up and then we'll get this first cut done. Alright. We'll get that flipped over and come back and show that cut. Alright, so I have the log flipped over. I'm going to have to drop this cut deck by about 1.5 inches to make up for the fact that I had the ends of that one end of it leveled up to get the pith centered. This is the pain of this thing. If you're doing dimensional lumber, it would almost be worthwhile to have two of them. One to cut for a leveling cut, and the next for actually the dimension that you want to cut. That's an inch, 1.5. There are markings on the bars here. They're kind of useful for this, not so much for actually setting up your initial cuts. So that sets me at 11.5 inches on that end, and then I need to do that end over there. That is not wanting to move either direction. There we go. Hopefully I'm not blocking y'all's view. And got these two nuts. There we go. I couldn't get it to move in either direction there for a moment. Go. 11.5. Hold it in place while I tighten it so it doesn't spring. Comparison. Like, that looks pretty good. Let's see if I can move this down there so you all can see without putting the bar in the way. There we go. So yeah, you can see my cutting height is pretty close, just a little bit below the surface there. I may have to come down a little bit lower because of that dip there. But we'll see in a moment. Alright, it's actually the next day. I got the chain sharpened up last evening, but it was getting kind of late. Just wanted to go over this chainsaw jig. I got it off Amazon. It's a Vever model. I've only seen about 2 or 3 other YouTubers using it. What it does is it clamps on to your blade in 2 points. It's got some flat spots underneath there and on the other end. It's adjustable for different length bars. This one I've got it set up for a 36-inch bar. You've got these little guards right here to help keep you from biting into the wood too far. It's got the little end cap on the oil end to help protect people, and also to kind of capture the bar oil as it comes out. You have these 2 spots here that allow you to raise and lower it. There's actually markings on these sides. I had it set up with these on the outside like that. I may take a look into swapping these around. They are interchangeable. You have to do both of them. That's simply because to raise and lower it, you need to undo these nuts enough to be able to move it, and when it's down to the body of the chainsaw itself, these get very difficult to operate. It did come with, I know there's a word for this tool and I don't remember what it is, but it came with one of these that you can also use on all the fittings on it. Well, almost all the fittings. Only issue I've really had so far is the center bar will not tighten down. I've tried several times to get those clamps tightened down. I'll probably put some sort of shim or something in there just to add that extra structural support. So what I was doing earlier is I had it much higher up, so it took into account the scaffold that I was running it along, as well as cutting down as far as I wanted to level out the surface. I looked at the surface of the wood this morning, and I don't think I need to do another skim pass. It is a little bit lower, maybe about 1/4 of an inch lower there, but because you can move that thing side to side a little bit, I should be able to do my cut. Now I'm going to lose quite a bit when I take this pith out. It's going to be a wide bowl blank as opposed to a large bowl blank. But as bad as that pith is cracking, even with it sealed, I want to go ahead and get that out of there. And then I'll cut that blank up into 2 boards for other use. One little trick I kind of figured out on my own, I'm sure someone's done it before as well. If you want to set a certain depth, like you want to cut slabs to a certain size, when you're doing that, this is a 2-inch board, 2-inch wide board. I just had it sitting in there. I would set the jig down on it, and then tighten it down, and then I do the other end. And that sets the slab height. So I'm going to be cutting down a slab of 2 inches, but it's going to be cutting a little bit wider because of the curve of the blade. And that's going to take me right below the pith, so I think that's a good spot to be putting it. But I'll get this set up, I'll get the dogs inside, and then we'll move on to the next step of cutting out the pith of that. go. All right. See what we got. There's a tiny bit of the pith left. All right, it's not the prettiest boards. But yeah, cut it right down that way. Be a little bit less than 2 inches after it's cleaned up, maybe 1.5 inches. Get the broom real quick. It is very, very green still. Whew. Let me get you in close. There we go. It'll work for turning. Could have gone just a little bit lower. I may seal that up a little bit just to try and minimize the checking that I'm seeing. I still got to round it out. I still have quite a bit of sapwood that had some guests while it was sitting out. And I do greatly appreciate the gentleman who gave this to me, because this is going to be fun to turn in probably a couple years. But yeah, I'll do a circle here. I'll lop off the corners like I did with this pecan. That pecan was actually a whole log that I split with this for the first time. I did the same thing, except I cut off the top, then I cut out the pith, then I had the bottom, and rounded off the edges on it. Well, hopefully that helps somebody. I may not have mentioned it. This is a relatively new saw. This is third or fourth time me using it. It's a Stihl MS462 Charlie with the modulation control for the carburetor. You got it with a 28-inch bar. That's a 36-inch aftermarket bar, which is the max size this saw can handle. Oddly enough, Stihl didn't have a 36-inch bar and chain for this model, even though it's listed it as a compatible size. And it's just about right. This is green white oak, so quite a bit wet. It probably would have been a little bit harder had it been fully dry. But hopefully it helps somebody if they decide they want to go down this route. It is a slow process. This is not a fast mill. You gotta take your time, let the saw cut. I am not an expert, so if anybody's got any comments to share with me, things to make this better, things I may need to purchase to improve this, let me know. Appreciate it. Everybody have a good day. Thank you. Oh, real quick before we go, I thought I'd show off the bowl blank after I've had it rounded out. I used a beam compass with some trammel points to draw out the maximum circle. Depending on the sapwood, it may end up actually being smaller than this. It is sealed up with watered down Titebond 2, including the what little bit remains of the pith. I got really close to that on both sides, but with that checking it's tracing down, I'd never get rid of it completely. And these are the two boards that I finished up, and as you can tell, that's the one that had the dip in it, and you can see there that checking how deeply that goes. It won't be useful for lumber, but I'll definitely get some turning pieces out of this. And there's that other piece. After this, you're going to see a short slideshow of the full pecan log that I actually milled down. Y'all have a good day. Thank you.